He's got one foot in the frying pan and one in the pressure cooker. Believe me, as a bowler, I know that right about now, your bladder feels like an overstuffed vacuum cleaner bag, and your butt is kind of like an about-to-explode bratwurst.
Hey, do you mind? I wasn't talking when you were bowling.
Was I talking out loud?
Welcome to Munson's at the Movies. My name is Kyle. I will once again be your host. I'm joined by the rest of the Munsons. Want to give them a wide berth.
He's what is called a born loser. A real Munson.
And talk a little bit about what's going on in their worlds. I'll jump in first this week. Made my first return trip back to the movie theater last week, and I did not die. So this is it's a strong start.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Say, we should give it time, Kyle.
2 to 14 days, Kyle.
I've got some time in the incubator. But I saw Personal History of David Copperfield, which was decent. And then I saw Tenet last night, and my mind is still all over the place. So be excited to talk about that with you guys once you get a chance to check it out. Because it's Nolan. Say that. Very, very Nolan. And the Maryland just went to stage 3 here, so the theater's open here in Maryland tomorrow. We were going to Arlington, Virginia before that.
Having to cross state lines to go watch a movie? What's going on?
Pretty much. It felt like back in the day when I had to drive to Ohio for fireworks. So.
I mean, it makes sense because like the virus can't drive across state lines, so you should be good.
Protected by red states, you know.
Exactly.
Keep away from these blue and purples. So, Case.
We're finishing off the summer months here down in Texas. So the good news is it's been so hot for so long, I don't have to mow my lawn anymore. So I got a nice reprieve for the next couple of weeks. And so I'm just going to rest on that. And I look forward to talking some movies tonight, boys.
James.
My wife is currently spray painting indoors, and I'm high as fuck right now.
Is she turning into quite the artiste, or are we doing some home improvement?
No, just home improvement stuff. My fireplace has looked like shit since we bought the house, and she's like painting the inside of it so that it doesn't just look like an electrical socket. And boy, am I high in this office. I'm far away from it too, and it just reeks of spray paint in here.
Warren.
Yeah, not too much. Actually decided to, in this time of political upheaval, decided to start watching The West Wing and realize how great things could have been. So if a Sheen wants to run for political office, I would gladly take him.
We've already had a reality show star run for president, so why not an actor next?
Hey, I'll vote for The Rock too, because he's COVID free now.
Rigby.
Yeah, not much. Just if it's obviously been a very, very shitty year for all of us, and the fact that the NFL is starting soon, and if we could just get a seamless NFL season during the next 6 months, I would be very happy. Because the NFL and fantasy, there's nothing that makes me more excited. It's kind of the start of a new year sort of thing with this coming around. So we're hoping that we can have a good NFL season and nothing gets messed up. But I'm not holding my breath on that.
Before we move forward, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
Big time.
I mean, I think that one hit harder than the normal actor celebrity death because no one knew it was coming except for his inner circle.
I was about to go to bed like an asshole. I was just like, probably had been looking at Twitter for about an hour at that point. And I shot up in my bed and I was like, holy shit. My wife thought something bad happened. But, well, I mean, to our kid or something like that. It was a gut punch for real. Yeah. I was not happy.
To think that he shot all those movies the last 4 or 5 years while he was sick was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And that made it even sort of worse, just knowing that he went through all that and still persisted, and just because he wanted to give people the movies that he was used to making, I guess.
Yeah.
Man wanted to live his life as well as he could without having it be a distraction, so you got to respect that. All right, we got some birthdays. September 10th. Warren.
So first off, we got Colin Firth. King's Speech, The Kingsman, 1917, and Love Actually.
I think he's older than we think, so I'm going to go like 64.
61.
59.
68.
He is 60. James gets that backdoor win. His action scene in The Kingsman Part 1 to Freebird in the church, Epic.
Oh, it's great.
Absolutely epic. All right, number 2, we got Ryan Phillippe from MacGruber, Cruel Intentions, and Crash.
Has to be Crash. Has to be Crash. Oh, Phillippe used to be like a god in Hollywood at one point, man. He was in everything in late 90s, early 2000s.
He thought his shit didn't stink.
Yeah, no shit.
48, Warren.
46.
49.
44.
46.
Oh,
Damn
on
it.
fire over here.
He's still in really good shape, too. That dude's, he's cut, man.
Last one, we have Guy Ritchie, director of Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrel, Snatch, Rock and Rolla, and King Arthur.
55.
I'm going to say 61.
58.
Give me 59.
52. So
Ooh.
I think Rigby
No
had the low ball. That was the closest wall going over. So those are the birthdays for today.
We had 5 actors, as always, that we put onto the wheel. Those 5 actors were Deb Patel, Rosamund Pike, Ben Kingsley, Jason Sudeikis, and Gugu Mbatha-Raw. As we know by now, the wheel has landed on Gugu. So we're going to get into her background. Before we do any of that, James, actor trivia.
All right, folks, you know the deal here. 2 of these things are true. 1 of them isn't. We're going to hop right into it. So fact number 1. She was appointed an officer of the British Empire for services to drama. Fact number 2. Her first name in Zulu means our treasure. Fact number 3. Fearing imprisonment during the apartheid in South Africa, her father fled the country assisted by the UN, which she now works as an ambassador for.
I'm going to go number 2 is the Zulu is the lie.
I'm going to go with number 3, and that is Jordana Brewster's dad.
I like that little Brewster action. I'm going with 2 as well, with Rigby.
Well, I'm going to pick number 1 and be the odd man out.
So with the most of you picking fact number 2, that is in fact true. First name in Zulu does mean our treasure. The other one that is true is fact number 3. Her father was a doctor in South Africa, and fearing imprisonment because he was politically involved when he was a student, he fled the country out of fear of being put on Robben Island and was assisted by the UN, in which Gugu actually currently is an ambassador for. And fact number 1, she was actually appointed a member of the Order of the British Empire, which is an MBE. The difference is an officer of the Order of the British Empire was actually Idris Elba, who's the star of Fast and Furious, Hobbs and Shaw.
So well done.
That's a
Well
good
done.
one.
What the difference means is nothing. I looked it up, and even the British really struggle in explaining the difference between an MBE and an OBE, so I don't think it really matters.
All right, snapshot in box office history. Case.
The challenge on her this week was that she's got a lot of movies that either went straight to Netflix, were were released in England, and we didn't get the box office info, so it's really an incomplete picture. The things that stand out is she doesn't have a ton of huge budget movies, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of Rebecca Hall from a few podcasts ago, where she's doing a lot more modest project. She's only got 3 movies that have over $100 million budget, and they're Jupiter Ascending, Beauty and the Beast, and A Wrinkle in Time. She's really hasn't been a major factor in any box office performances, as far as I can tell. You guys want to take a guess at which of her movies was the biggest bomb in the box office?
I'll go last just in case I'm right.
Okay.
Not Jupiter Ascending?
It is not Jupiter Ascending. That profited $8 million.
What?
Motherless Brooklyn, maybe?
Nope. That only lost $8 million.
Only lost 8 mil. Oh, boy.
Only lost $8 million.
Only. Edward Norton wasn't selling that project, I guess.
Concussion.
Concussion profited $14 million. Warren, I think you know it. What is it?
Odd Thomas made $1 million off a $27 million budget.
That lost
Whoa.
$25.9 million.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I was more shocked that movie had a $27 million budget.
Yeah, no kidding.
The other movie I thought had an interesting box office was Misbehavior.
Mm-hmm.
Did that movie come out right at the beginning of the quarantine?
It came out over in the UK in March.
Okay, so it probably was a victim of COVID movie theater shutting down.
Yeah.
Right. It hasn't come out over here yet.
Yeah, it was budgeted for $22 million, and it's only made $799,000. And somehow it's still not her biggest box office flop.
Damn, Odd Thomas.
Odd Thomas had lost more money than a movie that got cut down because of a pandemic.
That's a lot of cash, baby. All right. Appreciate your case.
Thank you.
So before we get into her first feature film, talk a little bit about her early career. So pre-2005, she got her acting start in 2005. She comes from a dancing background. And she mentioned in an interview she was raised on Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals. So I'm sure she was standing in line to see Cats when it came out in theaters this past December. Hopefully not. Hopefully she had more sense than that. But post 2005, so between 2005 and 2011, she does a lot of work. A lot of it's really small, and a lot of it, I'm going to say some of it is in the theater. So she's got a theater background. She was in Romeo and Juliet in 2005. She played Juliet. She was opposite Andrew Garfield, which is a little fun. And she got a Best Actress nomination for her work on that project. She was in Antony and Cleopatra as Octavia in 2005. And then just a slew of one episode drops in shows like Holby City. She was in the Spook series. She was in Bad Girls in 2 episodes, Vital Signs, Closure. She entered the Doctor Who universe, which is a very, very big universe. And then after that, you see 5 TV movies. One's called Fallout. It's not available on Tubi. Came out in 2008. I did watch. It's only like an hour and 20 minutes. So it's pretty short consumption. The cinematography is exactly what you would expect out of a TV movie, low budget. But I will say, she's young actress at the time. You could tell she's the standout of the group. I think, like we talked about with Lithgow in his early career and some of those really crappy projects he was in, it was clear that, she had some acting prowess at that point in her career. So she was definitely the standout in, what are just terrible TV movies at that point. And then following that, she's in a TV series called Bone Kickers in 2008. She's in a couple episodes of Lost in Austin 2008 as well. Act of God. And then she was in Hamlet as Ophelia in another stage production opposite Jude Law. So early in her theater career, acting with some big-time names in the British film and the theater scene, which I'm sure gave her some access into the Hollywood scene. She was in a show called Undercovers as Samantha Bloom, and I note this because J.J. Abrams recruited her for the role because he saw her in the play Hamlet with Jude Law. So some of her theater work got her some film and TV work at that point in her career. So all that leads up to 2011, which is where she gets her first feature film breakout role, and that's in Larry Crown, which Craig is going to talk about.
It's a 2011 film starring Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts. In this movie, Hanks is the producer, director, co-writer, and co-star. So he was doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And, this is in the era when Tom Hanks was just crushing everything he did. And this movie was his directorial follow-up to That Thing You Do. The movie's got a fantastic cast. It's got Tom Hanks. It's got Julia Roberts, who's the co-star, and she plays Mrs. Mercedes Taino. Gugu's in here. Wilmer Valderrama, Pam Grier, Cedric the Entertainer. And then it's got really good cameos by Taraji P. Henson, Bryan Cranston, Rita Wilson, Tom Hanks' wife, George Takei, and Rob Riggle.
Damn.
Oh.
When we meet Larry Crown in this movie, he's working at one of those big box stores. And there's this joke. He gets called to the office, and one of his coworkers is like, "Oh, you know why they were calling you to the office, right? To give you Employee of the Month again." He goes into the office thinking he's going to get Employee of the Month. We later learn that they're calling him in to fire him. And the reason they're firing him is he's the most senior person on staff, but due to corporate regulations, they can't promote him because he doesn't have a college degree. We learned from different conversations that Larry's down on his luck pretty much in every aspect of his life. He's lost his job, he's lost his wife, and he's in the process of losing his home. Larry's neighbor, played by Cedric the Entertainer, is Lamar. And there's a really funny scene. He shows Larry a college admission book, and he shows it to him, and Larry gets excited. He goes, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to go back to college. Can I take this?" And he's like, "Yeah, 50 cents. So he tries to sell him this community college course catalog for 50 cents because he runs this garage sale out of his yard every single day. It's really funny. Fast forward, Larry attends a community college, and we're introduced to all the characters in this movie, one of which is Munson's at the Movie alum, Rami Malek. He's in the same speech class as Larry Crown.
Our boy.
There's a pretty funny scene to kind of introduce Julia Roberts' character. She walks into the class. There's only 9 people in there. She walks in and she starts counting everybody. And she gets all excited because there's only 9 people in there. And she's like, hey, everybody, leave. Leave. This class is canceled. And everybody's like, what? She's like, according to state law, there has to be at least 10 people for me to have this class. As soon as she finishes and she's about to leave, in comes running Tom Hanks. And we get introduced to kind of his dynamics as a bumbling college student. So he's getting killed and everything. He's lost his job. He's got no income. So one of the ways he figures out how to save money is to buy a scooter because it gets such great gas mileage. And there's a scooter parking area. And that's where we meet Talia, played by Gugu. And she invites him to become part of her gang. She pretty much is going out of her way to make her cool or make him feel cool. It's a really good relationship in this movie because neither of them want anything from the other person. So it's really kind of fun to watch. Overall, this movie isn't going to win any awards, but it is a super easy watch. But here's a couple of things that I really did enjoy. I think Tom Hanks did a great job of casting a fun and upbeat ensemble cast. I think the movie hits on a lot of topics people can relate to. Recession in the economy, being or having a disgruntled teacher or boss. I think some people can relate to that. Bryan Cranston plays just an awful husband. And then one of my favorite things, George Takei plays economics instructor who does 2 things that just it makes me laugh all the time. Number one, he wrote his own textbook, and he makes all the students buy his textbook for his class.
Yes.
Vertical integration, bro.
I hate when that happened. I was like, you son of a bitch.
Especially because it's like a $200 book.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's never the cheapest one at the bookstore.
But you can sell it back to him for $15.
Yeah. They'll give you a good 15 for it back. Thank you so much.
And then the other thing he does is he makes jokes that nobody laughs at. He always has to make the comment like, this is where you guys laugh. It struck some memories for me, and so I did enjoy that. Overall, I enjoyed watching the movie far more than I thought I would. She's very good in this movie, and if you think about the heavy hitters that are in this movie, she's right up there at the top in terms of most important roles. So it was a good role for her to start her feature film career.
Yeah, Craig, I got to be honest. I think your George Takei impression is actually pretty good.
That was spot on. That was really good, man. I can co-sign on that. Yeah, I mean, that's big for her. She's in a Tom Hanks project early on in her career, which gives her a lot of access to other folks in the industry. Well, following that, between 2012 and 2013, she's in 2 projects. She is in the show Touch. And then after that, we hit the aforementioned Odd Thomas, the big money maker. She played a character named Viola Peabody.
The movie's not great. It's like something that you could definitely see on like Sci-Fi Network, but I love Anton Yelchin, R.I.P., big R.I.P. there. Willem Dafoe, Addison Timlin, and Googs. She's not great in it, but she's not asked to do much.
Yeah.
She plays a character that's supposed to get a little emotional, and she does. She shows some emotion, and then she forgets this whole omen that she's going to die, and she does shit anyways, so she deserves to get shot in the movie, but she doesn't, so whatever.
It just seemed like her character in that movie was just so pointless.
I
was. I was like, we could have had the same movie without her character, and it would have been fine.
Yeah. It wouldn't have been better or worse. It just would have been probably 4 minutes shorter.
Still would have lost $26 million regardless. So and that takes us to our highest critic score in 2014, and that's a movie called Belle, a period piece, which Warren loves to watch and cover. So
Yay.
Warren, tell us about Belle.
Guys, I gotta tell you, all honesty, this movie I did not finish. I watched the first 45 minutes and then I fast forwarded through, and then no joke, the first 45 minutes took 4 hours. That's how long that movie felt. I dislike almost every single thing about this movie. It blows my mind that this has an 84 critic and an 82 audience. The movie has some historical background. Gugu plays a character named Dido Elizabeth Belle. Her mother was a slave in the West Indies, and a sailor in the British Navy, banged one out with the mom. He comes back like years later and realizes they have a daughter. The mom has passed, and so this being his only daughter, he takes her back to his like family's home and gives them to like his uncle and their family to raise up this girl. All that is true, which is crazy for this time period because the slave trade and everything is still in full force. And so it was a huge social issue to have a person of color in a very well-to-do family home. She was unable to eat dinner with the family, but she was in higher in standing than the slaves that they had or servants they had working around the house. And so there is this like balance of like she doesn't really know where she fits in. But I did a lot of reading on the actual story, and they took so much artistic freedom with this that they made it just a fucking dumb movie.
Is an abomination comparatively to what happened.
Yeah, it turns into a love story, and they're like, she falls in love with this guy who is the son of this priest, or this preacher, and she turns away this engagement, and she falls in love with this guy who's like an apprentice to her uncle. Like none of that happened. She ended up, she married a manservant, and they had 3 kids. And it's just really, really fucking dumb. It really is. And they try and use her to show like a causation. They're like, she was the one that led her uncle to pass this legislation that 20 years down the line banned the slave trade. The whole idea of this movie was done based off a painting.
Yeah.
How fucking weak is that? That is so dumb. I didn't like it. Obviously didn't finish. And
you gave it a valiant effort, my friend.
I really did.
You gave a good review though. You gave us some good background.
Yeah, that's really good.
Tom Wilkinson's in it.
Yeah, there's some heavy hitters in there.
And I like Tom Wilkinson. He's good.
What's the dude from Harry Potter, from Slytherin? What's his name? Tom Felton?
Draco Malfoy? I don't know.
Yeah, the dude who plays Draco is in the movie. Tom Felton.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. He's like one of the antagonists of the movie. I saw that in the preview. Yeah. I was
like, shit.
It doesn't really look like him, does it? But
I mean, he looks like a douche either way. He's a douche in the movie with a wig, and now he's gonna get a douche in this movie. So
my guy's gonna get typecast in every role he ever tries to take on. So
yeah, I couldn't have told you. These movies make no fucking sense. I will seriously protest if I have to watch another one. So I really hope we don't have to watch anything from Keira Knightley.
I was about to say Keira Knightley.
Anything like that in the next, I don't know, year. Give me a year and maybe I'll consider doing something.
We'll switch out categories if we have to give you a break.
Of all the Munsons for that to land on, Warren is like the worst case scenario for the highest critic score to get reviewed by.
Yeah.
The highest critic score period piece.
Yeah. It's like there's no way she's making it out alive.
It's Warren and then Rigby. Those are the two you don't want to hit the period pieces.
Right.
And I have a low tolerance. I'm third. I'm right in line.
I'd much rather watch Odd Thomas 10 times over than watch this.
And I think the important note about her role in Belle is this put her on the map in a lot of ways. Lyricon was a good role for her, but Belle premiering a TIFF and going out, this is where she ended up on morning shows, doing interviews, and the crowd that really gets behind these types of films were like, oh, who's this Gugu and what is her name? We need to interview her. So this one kind of launched her.
She did have one scene where she was like, I don't know where I fit in. It was a very much the Mahershala from Green Book, where he was like, I'm not white enough, I'm not black enough. That's kind of what she does, and she has this breakdown.
Yep.
That was the peak of acting in the movie. Unfortunately, it was 30 minutes in and lasted 5 seconds. So
after that, that's 2014. We don't have another movie that we're going to hit from a category side for another 4 years. So 2014 to 2018 is the biggest chunk of her career. So following Belle, this is where she starts to get a lot of work. And the first one is a movie called Beyond the Light. I watched some clips of it. She plays a pop star. She sings in it.
Everybody loved this movie. I'm so upset none of us have watched this because I only watched her shitty movies, and now I realize like all the other ones are good, and I am absolutely going to give her an unfair grade.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch it. It wasn't streaming anywhere.
The
but
reviews of this are great.
I watched a bunch of stuff on YouTube, and she seemed like she was pretty solid. I saw some music videos. Give her credit there.
If all the big name movies are shitty, that's usually pretty indicative. Like, hey, guys, guess what? I did this awesome thing when nobody was looking, but nobody's going to fucking believe me.
Well, I can't wait to talk about this next one, Kyle.
Well, I was about to say that's going to bring us to Jupiter Ascending. She plays a character named Famulus in 2015.
This movie sucks ass.
It's so bad.
The first 10 minutes of it are so cool. The first opening scene is like this awesome chase scene, and then after that is like 2 hours of discussing global universal politics, and you just fall asleep. You're like, who cares, man? Like, this is so boring.
And Eddie Redmayne is talking like
Eddie is so bad in it.
And you have to turn up the volume because he's talking, and then all of a sudden he screams and like blows out your speakers.
Yeah, just randomly yells at the top of his lungs. I don't know what you were going for, dude, but this stinks.
It's the character they wrote.
I think that cast just saw the Wachowski's name attached to it. It's like, I'll do it, and then realized that it was kind of like Speed Racer. It was just a fucking disaster.
Yeah, there was a run of movies like that. There was like Valerian and the City of Planets or some shit like that came out. That movie was garbage. And then, you know, all those like, oh, we built this universe, and we got these people who suck ass at everything. Let's go ahead and film them.
Tomorrowland with George Clooney was another bomb. That also.
Mm-hmm. In Gugu's role, she was like the 10th, I'd say 10th to 12th most important character in the movie. It's pretty inconsequential overall. I mean, it's a sci-fi movie that she's in, but it's not a good one if you're going to pick one in terms of just picking roles. So
I'd rather watch Jupiter Ascending than watch Belle.
At least you can laugh at Jupiter Ascending from time to time.
Truth.
Because Channing Tatum is trying really hard. Really, really hard in that.
Yeah.
And I don't like Mila Kunis as an actress. I've never have. There's not really anything she's in that I'm like, oh, that's good. So, a little preview if we ever cover her.
I don't think she's great, but she's got some, like in Forgetting Sarah Marshall, her role in that was great.
Yeah, I guess she's all right now.
But that's picking and choosing. Like, yeah, go ahead.
Percentage. Yeah, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
After that, she picks what I would say is a much better role, and that's in 2015's Concussion. She plays alongside Will Smith as Prema Matuso. It's been a couple years since I've seen it. Watching some old clips of it, I think she does a pretty good job in a dramatic role supporting Will Smith's character in this movie.
I never saw this movie because it's apparently slander against the NFL and all the good things that they represent. And in no way would they defraud the populace and damage the lives of their employees.
Yeah.
But I never saw this, not because I actually believe that, but because I could read an article in 10 minutes and kind of get that over with.
You get the gist from it. It's just a dramatization of it. I think there were a lot of NFL fans who were going through some cognitive dissonance watching it, which is probably a lot of what was going on, because I love this product. Now, this is obviously before Colin Kaepernick came around and people got all up in arms about other issues related to the NFL. But this one was, pretty core. And I was surprised at the time when they released it that the NFL didn't put up more of a fuss. Maybe they did behind the scenes and we just didn't know about it, but pretty scathing on the NFL.
I remember thinking that they were gonna like ban their trailers and stuff during the games. And from what I remember, they aired ads during the games.
To Warren's point about how the NFL is innocent here, they've already agreed to almost $1 billion in settlements. So that definitely is the actions of a very innocent organization.
It's all PR, just getting that out of the way.
With a B. Billions with
donations.
A B.
In 2015, she was the title character in a stage production called Nell Gwyn. Again, got another nom for Evening Standard Theater Award for Best Actress. So tends to do well on the theater side, which I think is a trend.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
She was in The Whole Truth 2016, Free State of Jones, which we mentioned last episode, talking about Mahershala, that bombaroo. And then in 2016, I think she became at least a face. I'm not going to say a name, but a face to a newer audience when she was in the San Junipero Black Mirror episode. I went and watched, and it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I love that series, and that is far and away widely considered the best episode of the series. I think they're like 5 or 6 seasons in, and that episode won multiple awards. It actually won 2 Emmys. It's far and away considered the best one.
Yeah, her and Mackenzie Davis.
What was the plot of that one again?
It's an alternate reality that you can tap into as you get older.
It's essentially like if Apple owned heaven, and instead of taking a shot at what the afterlife is like, you can put your subconscious in what you know the afterlife could be like. And it's the one like Black Mirror episode that's actually like positive.
Yeah.
She ends up finding love while she's like testing it out with someone who is already passed on. And she ends up like marrying that person in the afterlife. It's really enjoyable, uplifting episode because most of them are super depressing and dark.
Yeah.
So Black Mirror, pretty important episode.
To give her final compliments on it, she's great in it. For someone who I didn't actually know who she was prior to the wheel deciding that we're going to cover her, when I saw that was her, her chemistry with the other lead actress is what makes that episode go. You know, it's just really well done.
And it's her first of a few LGBTQ types of roles that she's into. Because she is great with Mackenzie Davis, who I think is also an underrated actress, and some of her other projects are good. 2016, we see another movie that we've talked about on previous podcasts with another Munson's alum, and that's Jessica Chastain and Miss Sloane. She plays Esme Manacharian, who is the person that Chastain's character essentially manipulates to get what she wants.
So I just actually watched the first hour and 40 minutes of this right before starting this because I was like, I know that everybody else loves this movie, and so if I'm going to watch the one thing that people have already spoken really highly about, it would be this one. She does do a good job in this. She doesn't have a huge role because it is so heavy Chastain. Lithgow's in it too.
That's right.
Oh yeah, this is number. Yeah, we got 3. This is the one.
This is the only movie in the Munson's the Movie universe that has 3 alums in it.
I doubt that. I bet there's one that has others.
I don't know, man.
I'm sure there is, but my wife texted me because I was like, "You keep watching this. I'm going to go downstairs and start recording this." And she was like, "The ending of the movie is pretty good. You need to make sure you watch it." She was like, "But Googs doesn't really do too much except for like stare at her across the courtroom." And I was like, "Okay, I kind of get that."
Her relationship with Chastain's character is some of the more like tense moments in the movie. Yeah. But this is like when Chastain was on like the rocket ship to stardom, so she is every part of this movie.
And then between 2016 and 2019, she is in a Netflix show called Easy. She plays a character named Sophie. She's only in 2 episodes, and they're in 1 in each of the seasons. So it kind of continues the storyline. But I think the important part is she plays a character who is dating James in the show, a.k.a. Jake Johnson. And then finally, she was in, as we mentioned earlier, she's in the remake, or I guess the live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast. Plays Pomette, which is, would you describe her character as?
She's
like
a feather duster.
She's a feather duster. Yeah,
it's a little voice acting from her with a French accent. And that's the extent of it.
The movie was pretty good. I'm gonna be honest.
It was better than I expected. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
That leads us into 2018, which gets us into some doozies of movies, and that we're going to start with our lowest critic score. And James is going to talk about Cloverfield Paradox, which we have discussed in the past a little bit when we talked Chris O'Dowd, but not to this level.
Cloverfield Paradox is the 3rd installment in the Cloverfield universe, which is 3 movies that have actually been all produced by J.J. Abrams. I'll start by saying I loved the first 2 Cloverfields. I absolutely loved them. The first movie came out in 2008 and was kind of like a found footage style sci-fi thriller. So it was like a mix of the Blair Witch Project with like a monster movie like Godzilla. awesome, super unique. And anytime like a good monster movie comes out like that, I'm pumped because they're usually pretty crappy. The second installment came out in 2016 and is completely different than the first. The second one is like this intimate psychological thriller about a young woman who wakes up after a car crash and she's locked in a cellar with a doomsday prepper, like insists that he saved her life and she can't go outside because the world's uninhabitable because there was an apocalyptic catastrophe. And the whole time you're trying to figure out, is he full of shit or not? The reason the movie works is because John Goodman plays the Doomsday Prep, and he is unbelievable in that role. There isn't like a moment in the movie that he doesn't like fill with tension. It's only loosely tied to the first movie, and again, its uniqueness is what made it great. So I was super pumped for this third one to come out. Third one stars Gugu and is a completely different movie again from the other two. This one is a group of scientific researchers on a space station attempt to harness new energy source called the God particle, only to unleash unforeseen issues that actually tie to the first two movies. I can just skip to the end of my review and just so we can talk about the funnier aspects of this movie. This movie's different from the other two, that it completely sucks ass. Gugu's character, no, dude, it's so bad. Gugu's character, along with every other character, has no depth whatsoever. Good cast is completely wasted. To be fair, she wasn't good in this either. No one's good in this. Like, they're all making the same faces and the same tones, and at no point do you care about her, feel any chemistry between her and her other actors on the cast there. But so now let's talk about the funny parts of the movie. And if you guys have seen this, please hop in. I'll just go through some of the funnier scenes. One is the entire movie's plot is revealed with the first 10 minutes of the where a random cameo from Donald Logue, he just says the whole plot on TV. Like, everything that's going to happen is like, hey, this might happen. That's exactly what happens. It's literally everything that happens. There are multiple aspects of the movie that never get addressed. Like, one of the astronauts is Chinese and she speaks Mandarin, but everyone speaks to her in English and she responds in Mandarin, which they understand. So it's either she's just refusing to speak English and they've accepted that and she's being stubborn, or we as an audience have to like assume she's like the Chewbacca of the crew and like they just talk like she fucking gets everything and she speaks in a language that the audience doesn't understand. Never addressed that.
That's like Ocean's 11 with the little the acrobat guy.
Yep.
Why she clearly speaks English? Like, why is she not just speaking English? There's a Russian character who talks to himself in the mirror like he's possessed, and at no point ever again in the movie is it addressed. It's just like, I know what I have to do. No, I can't do that. Oh my God. And then like they never go back to that. It just never is addressed as a thing that happens. But at some point I thought this movie was so bad that it could be good because some of the deaths are hilarious.
O'Dowd.
O'Dowd is the one moment that gave me hope was O'Dowd. His character is nothing but like one-liner jokes, which apparently is something every space movie needs. Is like, here's the guy who's just a wisecracking idiot. I was like, why is he on this trip if he's this stupid? But he gets his arm like stuck in a wall, and it's like a computer glitch style. Like he broke a video game, arm gets stuck in the wall, and then his arm gets chopped off and then starts crawling around like it from the Addams Family.
Mm-hmm.
He's okay. He's not dead. It's just arm got chopped off. Wow, it doesn't hurt. And his arm randomly starts like writing. And so they give his arm a pen and his arm writes a message that they shouldn't trust one of the other people on the thing. And like, again, never explained. No one knows. It's like, what is going on in this movie? The movie sucked. It was like, there's a legit, they steal from so many other space movies. Arms burst out of someone's chest. Alien ripoff. There's a legit Harry Stamper on Armageddon's scene where, you know, the Americans like, we got to get out of here. And then he like fakes. He's like, just kidding. One of us has to stay behind. I was like, that's Armageddon. You just stole that from Armageddon. And then the other hilarious death scene was the Chinese astronaut just drowns in space. Out of nowhere, water starts dumping into like, one of the space capsules, and she drowns. And they never explain it. And the whole thing is supposed to be like, well, you know, sci-fi. I'm like, dude, this movie sucks. And it sucks because I loved the first two. And I think J.J. Abrams just got bored and probably bought a script and was like, I could turn this into Cloverfield because it didn't work.
Is that a Netflix movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was one of the first like major Netflix productions. They dropped it right after the Super Bowl.
It was marketed heavily before the Super Bowl, and probably built a lot of what people have angst for when it comes to Netflix movies at this point.
Yeah.
Because of how much of a bomb that was.
They introduced like, the reason she's doing this is because like her kids died with like 20 minutes left in the movie. Like, you think I give a shit now? Like, I don't care.
I'm laughing my ass off.
Yeah,
I'm hoping you all die.
You think I
at this
care
point.
now?
All right. Well, without having to destroy that one even farther than it's already ridiculed itself, we hit Gugu's largest audience gap, and that's another Netflix movie called Irreplaceable You. And Rigby's got it.
Irreplaceable You, like Kyle said, it's a 2018 Netflix movie. Gugu Mbatha-Raw plays a girl named Abby. She lives with her fiance Sam, and they have been together you meet them. You see the movie opens up when they're kids, and they're in love with each other from the moment they basically meet. I guess you could say when they're like 8 years old, and they get married, and they've been together their whole life. Abby seems to have everything figured out. She's got a good job. She's got a good husband or a good fiance. And then she thinks that she's pregnant. And when she goes to the doctor tells her that she's not pregnant. She's actually has a massive cancerous tumor in her stomach. And her whole life changes. She's basically told that she's going to die. She gives these quality of life options, but it's inevitable that she is going to die soon. It's a good build-up for a movie, and I think they could have done a lot with it. The reason that it sucks is because, like you typically see in movies when people get these shocking death
diagnosis,
unexpected out of nowhere. Yeah, they make the most out of their life. They try to treat people the right way, or they try to right these wrongs that they've had in their lives. What this movie does is she realizes that her fiance, Sam, because he's like a very smart, intellectual science nerd, he doesn't have a lot of like people skills in terms of, and just social skills. I mean, he doesn't know how to like do laundry. He doesn't know how to like cook. He doesn't know how to like have a decent conversation with someone who's not her, basically. She realizes that he's going to be, I don't even
single.
Yeah, single. And when she finds out she has the cancer, she goes to this meeting group of cancer patients. And that's where the cast is actually amazingly good. It's Christopher Walken.
He's awesome.
Kate McKinnon, Steve Coogan. Christopher Walken's incredible in it. He was the best character by far. Very pessimistic about everything, and he kind of plays devil's advocate on all of her suggestions about what she should do for the rest of her life, basically. So where the movie goes crazy is she creates these secret online dating profiles to interview these women that she intends to set up her fiance with when she eventually dies.
She becomes his pimp.
Exactly.
Basically.
Exactly.
Bro, why do cancer movies do shit like this? It's like P.S. I Love You. It's just unbearable to me.
You know, I can admit, I actually enjoy P.S. I Love You, and I kind of felt similar vibes in this, but at the same time, I didn't. The reason I like P.S. I Love You is because I actually like the characters. I didn't like the characters in this movie. I don't know why. I just had a hard time relating to all of them, especially Abby. Gugu's obviously a very talented actress, but I think she's very underutilized in this movie. I really do. The cast had such potential with Kate McKinnon, with Christopher Walken, with Steve Coogan. Timothy Simmons from Veep is like actually a really funny character. He plays his nurse her nurse in the movie.
He's good.
He's good. But I don't know. I was very underwhelmed by it, probably because it's so sappy and so melodramatic and so sort of eye-rolling that, like I said, I think I texted you all and said, how is this not a Nicholas Sparks movie? Because that's sort of what it feels like.
It does the relationship with Gugu and Walken's characters well. Like when she goes at the end and she realizes he's passed away and, didn't really say anything and she's talking to his wife. Like that part, that'll get you a little bit in the feels, but it's just so unrealistic.
Someone who's been in love with somebody for 30 years like she has, like the last thing on your fucking mind should be to create an OkCupid profile and be like, here, let me hook you up. Like that is I guess I could see why the writers of this movie think that people would attach to that. But like at the same time, you gotta be realistic when writing. I mean, I get romantic comedies are they're always whimsical and they're always just like kind of ridiculous, but it's 2020 at this point. 2018 is when this movie was made. Like, stop giving these ridiculous plot lines a chance,
This could have been a Nicholas Sparks movie if they made like young Gugu like some white kid instead of like, what's his name? What's his name who played Marsden?
Yeah. Young Gugu would have been like Millie Bobby Brown or something.
Like, they're not even close to looking alike.
That would have been so good. Yeah, hey, this is Chloe Grace Moretz playing Gugu.
I finished it, but Warren, I had a hard time finishing it, so I admire the fact that you can admit that you turned yours off early.
Man, DNF, it's a real thing.
Did not.
So I definitely agree with the low audience score in this one.
Yeah. She leans into the character, but the character is extremely unrealistic, and that just murders the project from the start, unfortunately.
In 2018, when Cloverfield, Paradox, and Irreplaceable You came out, her IMDb star meter climbed up to number 10.
What the fuck?
Damn.
Number 10 top releases: Cloverfield, Paradox, and Irreplaceable You, and then it drops down to
600.
It drops down to 57 when we move on to the next movie, Wrinkle in Time.
Wrinkle in Time came out in 2018. She played Mrs. Murray, basically Chris Pine's wife. Again, not a major role in the movie. The movie is more carried by Oprah and Reese Witherspoon and the young people in the cast, of which I don't know their names, so I'm going to say the young people in the cast. It's definitely like a women's empowerment movie, young girls. This is the first of a couple movies that she's in like that. So that's probably a major reason she joined the cast. It's about taking these young girls who, have power and they can do a lot more with it. And Wrinkle in Time is definitely written for kids. It's not written for us, but
she's got a tendency to favor female directors too. So that makes sense.
Who is the director of that one?
Ava DuVernay.
Yep. From a cinematography standpoint, just absolutely gorgeous in terms of some of the shots they're able to pull off in that one and some of the CGI work there. I mean, the colors are just crazy in that one, but it's all right. It's a decent film. So that takes us to her largest critic gap, and that is Fast Color. Came out in 2018 as well. So 2018 is a really, really busy year for her in terms of releases. So 2016, 2017, from a working standpoint, very busy. This is my review. It's not a huge gap, though. I mean, we're looking at it on Rotten Tomatoes, an 81 from the critics and 64 from the audiences. So only 17 points, and both of them are above the fresh rating. So generally, both enjoyed this movie. It's directed by Julia Hart. She did a different movie on Disney Plus called Stargirl that came out this year that I really enjoyed. Allegedly, this movie is being transformed into a TV series by Amazon Studios by the same writers, so they can kind of draw out the characters a little bit more, because they definitely don't. There's a lot to it, and they didn't get into a ton of it. But the concept of the movie is they're in a world where water is extremely scarce at this point. Gugu plays a character named Ruth who has these superpowers. She doesn't really know how to control them. She abandons her family a while ago and is kind of on the run and is trying to hide her abilities because people are trying to track her down. The movie kind of pivots because she runs into a government agent who tricks her and tries to take her in. She shoots him in the hand, basically escapes, and she has nowhere else to go except to go home to her mom and her daughter. Her daughter doesn't know that's her mom because she took off a long time ago. It's basically it's a superhero movie that turns the genre on itself in a lot of ways. And I say that because it's not focused on the spectacle of being superheroes. It's really focused on the characters and these three women. From a, I guess, theme standpoint, it's really just about three generations of women who are using their powers and potential and not being afraid to share them with the world. That's really the concept of the movie. It just comes through superheroes, right? Like every superhero archetype in history. I watched this for the first time probably a year and a half ago. Wasn't blown away. I think the rewatch for me was a lot better because I started to view it from that lens. Women realizing their potential and their powers and what they can do with the world. It takes on a whole new form, and I can get why the critics rated it as high as it did. Her character relies on four key emotions, is what I noted in there. Desperation, frustration, stubbornness, a whole lot of stubbornness, and then hope. That's really what the movie pivots on at the end. She does it pretty convincingly. She's the lead in this, bar none. Lorraine Toussaint plays her mom, and she's an excellent actress, and I think she does a pretty good job as well. Mm-hmm. But her story is really just one of addiction. She can't see the color, which is kind of like this idea of like knowing your potential, like her mom and her daughter. But I like what they do with her arc at the end. You know, they think she's really dangerous. She can affect tectonic plates. That's what he says. But then she brings water, and it's raining at the end of the movie. And, you know, it's this like enlightenment moment where she's figured out, like, I can overcome this stuff. I can start a new life. It's a cool movie. It's a small indie project. It's, you know, if you like a different take on the superhero genre, it's pretty cool. But it's not a 9 or a 10 by any stretch of the imagination.
Did you find it to be really slow?
Yes.
The first time I did. I think this time, because I was just locked in a different way, I was less in tune with that. But yeah, it's paced very slowly.
Kyle, what you mentioned about it potentially becoming a TV show, I think that is a good idea because I think the story lends itself a little bit more character development, and a slower pace could work. Because when I watched it, that was the first thing I thought. I was like, wow, this is a very fascinating storyline. I like when people take different approaches to superhero movies, but it was just too drawn out and too slow that by the time that it kind of got where it was going, I was like, I'm a little checked out, man. This is just like, you haven't built this up enough yet. And for me to kind of care for the payoff as a TV show, I think that could work.
Yeah, they can really pull out the, especially the historical side of her family, because apparently it's run through generations. And then the idea of, you know, spoiler at the end where she says, there's more of us, go find them. They're going to Rome. You could make that really interesting as they're on the run from the government. It's kind of like what happens with Lorraine Toussaint's character at that point in time, right? Like, does she eventually realize, hey, I hate government testing and sacrificing myself was not a fun idea? And what happens from there? So they could take it a lot of places. I assume they're just going to change up the casting quite a bit. Like, I don't think Gugu's attached to it. So rounding out the last couple of years, she's been extremely consistent with her work. She was in a movie called Farming, 2018. She was one of many actors who lent her voice to the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. Gugu plays a character that is in 9 of the 10 episodes of the Dark Crystal, the Netflix series. So a pretty prominent role throughout that story. So some more acting from that standpoint, voice acting.
I've heard nothing but good things about that show. It's just not like a stylish show I've ever really been into, but everyone who is into kind of like that fantasy style, I've only heard good things about it.
For the folks who were a big fan of the movie, the show was not a letdown. It was a good extension of the universe based on the reviews that I've read. She was in Motherless Brooklyn, Edward Norton's movie. You know, he was really trying to push it into award season, and it just went nowhere. I watched it this past week. Her role is important to the story.
It could have been any actress.
Yeah, it could have been anybody in that role.
That's another movie that's written, directed, produced, and starred, you know, by the same person. I remember that movie came out and Edward Norton was all over the place. The thing that I found interesting, it was based on a book that took place in the 90s. He wanted to make a film that was kind of an homage to the old school detective films.
Yeah, it's a noir film.
I found that part pretty interesting, but, you know, other than that, it's just a pretty pedestrian movie.
The soundtrack's pretty cool. Like, it gives you that tone, but overall, it's a really long movie. It's way too long. It's like 2.5 hours. Yeah. She plays a role in the morning show as Hannah Schoenfield, which is available on Apple TV. I think that was what Apple TV's big, like, first series for its subscription.
It was the first series that was like there during launch day when it came out last year. Gugu plays the booker in that show.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with TV, bookers are obviously the people who have to call and introduce the guests to the show and all this stuff. They have a very hard job. And I watched the first 4 episodes, and she does a good job. For someone who used to work in TV, the show doesn't really do a good job of representing that. Just because, you know, it's a drama, it's going to be sort of sensationalized and stuff. But I think for what she does in that role, I think she represents what a real life booker does very well. And I liked her in it.
That's good.
Craig, you want to talk about the later episodes? Because I only watched the first 4.
I was watching this. I was interested to hear your take on that type of, you know, how accurate the setting was. And for those that, you know, that don't know about it, it's written to address the Me Too movement, really. She has probably the 3rd most important plot role in the whole TV show. I'm not going to get into any sort of spoilers. The last 2 or 3 episodes, I mean, she more or less takes over the show. She's incredible.
Interesting.
her role was great because, like Rigby was talking about, she really portrayed a booker that really had her shit together in a really tough job. And we find out later that it is very far from reality. It's a really powerful role that she plays in that show. And I was kind of watching the show, debating how much of my time I was wasting. And then I got to the final few episodes, and I was just compelled to know how this thing ends. And she takes over the plot, and she does a great job. I think she's going to get a lot of leading roles in major projects because of this.
I mean, there are a lot of heavyweights on that cast, based on what I saw.
Uh-huh.
Carell, Aniston, Crudup. The most recent projects, so these are all her 2020 entries. She is in a movie called Come Away. She plays adult Alice Littleton. I saw this at Sundance this year. I will tell you, probably no one will see this movie ever. I don't think it got picked up after Sundance. It was one of two movies at Sundance that were a new take on the Peter Pan tale. And this is a very dark version of it, which was written for kids, which is why I don't think you're going to see it. Because there are good actors in there. She's in there, David Oyelowo, I never pronounce his name correctly, and a few others, but it's probably way too dark for the average child to watch, and because of that, I think that's why I didn't get picked up. The other Peter Pan take was received a lot better at the festival, so we'll see. Maybe you all will get a chance to check it out at some point. I like dark stories, so I didn't hate it, but I can understand why people wouldn't want their kids to watch it.
I will tell you this: you did not sell me on wanting to watch it.
Yeah, it's not subtle about how it deals with death, and you know how parents are in this country not wanting to approach tough issues with their kids. So we'll see. And then she is in the movie we mentioned before, Misbehavior.
The movie is interesting. It's a true story. 1970 Miss World competition takes place in London. This movie couldn't really decide what it wanted to address social issue wise, where this was like the start of the women's liberation movement in the UK. And this was also the first time that a person of color had won Miss World competition. So they are tackling, and she wins. Jennifer Hostin, she plays a real life person, and they have a little tribute to the main characters. Keira Knightley plays a real person, and she's the main character in the movie. She's more on the side of women's rights and joins kind of this group of women who are protesting the quote cattle show that this the contest is. And it's an entertaining movie. It definitely is a story that you'll never hear about. And the one big takeaway is that Bob Hope was a big piece of shit. So,
is that who Greg Kinnear plays?
Greg Kinnear plays him, and he does a really, really creepy ass job.
Greg Kinnear can play a creep when he needs to, man.
They made Bob Hope off to be like Weinstein level creep. It's worth a watch. It's only about an hour, 45 minutes. I think really by the end, it's just like, you're not really sure which way they should have gone. It was two huge issues, and they tried to attack them all at once and didn't really give either of them the proper amount of time to address, because they're both really, really big, and there is overlap. It doesn't hit on it. Would I give it an 88 out of 100? No, but I think it's still worth a watch.
Yeah, I was intrigued.
She's not asked to do much at all. She's in a beauty pageant.
She seemed like almost like the trailer was framing her to be almost the antagonist in a way. And then finally, Summerland, which I think is also another, much like Misbehavior, an unfortunate COVID victim in that I think it was supposed to come out by this point and hasn't yet. There are trailers you can check out online. Based on what I saw, she plays an LGBT character, which would fall in line with other roles that she's played. And that is the career of Gugu Mbatha-Raw. Let's get into the Munson Meter. If you're a first-time listener, we examine a number of different things. I'm going to fire through these quickly. We look at their longevity, how long they've been been in the industry, how consistent they've been. We look at their pop culture impact. We examine their acting range, their awards footprint, any other talents they might have, their personal life, their comedic chops, and then, and I'll make this note as well, because I think we probably all take this into account as well. You know, the types of projects that they choose and also their box office impact, which Case walked us through earlier. So with all that in mind, looking at a scale of 0 to 100, Case, you're first this time.
For better or worse, I don't hear a whole lot about her from a pop culture standpoint. And despite having a pretty unique name, you know, it's not necessarily a household name. But at the same time, I think she's got the charisma. I think she's got the acting chops. I think she's got the personality to be, you know, a pretty high flyer in Hollywood. And, you know, I think that's evident in 2018. I mean, when she got all the way to number 10 in the IMDb Star Meter, I think that's important. She seems pretty comfortable in a wide range of roles. However, she hasn't been put into a big budget, high profile role and had to carry that movie. And so I would like to see that. And she's probably going to lose some points from me there. You know, awards wise, you know, she's gotten some awards, but nothing stands out. And same thing with skills. You know, it's bad timing coming on the heels of our last podcast where we've had somebody that won 2 Academy Awards, was a rapper, a basketball, did all these things. You know, her skills outside of stage and screen, you know, we don't know a whole lot about. No, the only other thing that I'm going to add is I do like how she champions projects directed by women, and I think that's important. And as she does, and I really do believe she will, as she continues to gain more influence in Hollywood, I think that will be a great thing for the film industry. All that being said, I'm going to give her a score of 70.
Right. Warren.
Gugu is a stage performer. She's not an actress. I think she's almost replaceable in just about everything she's done. I had no idea who she was prior to this, so no name recognition. I consider myself to have decent understanding of this stuff. I don't know. She just seems like you can. She's a plug and play. You can find just about anybody to fill in those roles. And I know maybe if I had finished, I wasn't going to say finished Belle, but if I had finished the morning show, maybe I would have something different based off, you know, what Craig is saying with her actually showing some, I don't know, some moxie or something with the role. It's hard to give like a really high score when my favorite thing that I've seen them in was like a 50-minute TV show episode. I'm not going to drag this on. I'm going to give her a 40.
Rigby.
I didn't know who she was before the podcast either, but I had seen the San Junipero episode of Black Mirror. That was really good. I got to dig into a little bit of the morning show this week, which I enjoyed. I think I watched a few of her YouTube interviews. She's very like funny, very charming, very sweet. You know, I don't really know, like Craig said, I don't really know what her personality is like outside of what her I guess life is like outside of acting and stage and in film. But I do think there's an opportunity to do something bigger for sure. She's had some leading roles, but I think they've sort of been relegated to Netflix type movies instead of big budget type movies.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean she can't get those roles for sure. But I think she's got a lot of potential. I'm going to give her a 66.
I'll jump in. So I think you guys have hit some pretty key points. I think number one, she gets unfairly compared to Kerry Washington because they look almost identical.
Very similar.
I think when you compare those two, you know, Kerry Washington had her big, you know, role in Scandal, which put her on the pop culture map, and Gugu just hasn't had that. You know, she hasn't had that big role where you're like, that's a name, that's the Chris Pratt from Guardians of the Galaxy, right? So she just hasn't had that, and maybe she will, right? Maybe that's coming down. I will give her some points for she hasn't been acting that long, but she's been consistently doing work. Not that her projects are bad. They're just kind of middle of the road a lot of times. But I like that she stayed pretty much on brand from a personal standpoint of the types of people she wants to work with and the types of projects and messages that she wants to push out. I think she's at her best as an actress with tears in her eyes. It sounds kind of weird when I say that, but similar to Rebecca Hall, like being in distressed roles.
Yep.
When she is crying or almost crying, I think that's when she's at her best as an actor. And the fact she's got critics' love, but nothing major from an award standpoint. So with all that, I will note this final thing. She learned her American accent from impersonating characters in the show Friends.
I saw that. That was super
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, that was good.
You know, that's where she learned her American accent. So good job, Gugu. So with all that, my score is going to be a 59. And James, finish us off.
I appreciate you sharing that Friends anecdote there. I think Friends had a poor representation of Italians, and I'm glad she doesn't sound like Janice or Joey Tribbiani. So I could have been insulted, but I appreciate that not happening. You guys have said everything. I think all the movies I saw of her, they kind of stink, man. Like Beauty and the Beast, I thought was pretty good. And that's about it. That's all I can actually think of that I enjoyed of hers. Oh, Miss Sloane. That's a lot. Miss Sloane's good. And San Junipero, that's the best episode of Black Mirror, bar none. Name recognition's not there. Word's not there. I think it seems like she's trending upwards with the amount of work she's getting. She just hasn't gotten that right role, Kyle. So I think what you said is pretty accurate. She's waiting for that breakout role where it puts her on the map. And so for that, I gave her a 51.
All right. Warren, what do we got?
That gives Gugu a 57.2, which puts her at 16th, which is behind Chris Tucker and ahead of Natasha Lyonne.
Okay, and so Chris O'Dowd is still dead last.
Yep.
Chris O'Dowd is still dead last.
All right, I just want to make sure we've established that fact.
And James Marsden is 13th.
Sweet.
Lucky number 13.
Well, Warren, tell us a little bit about what she's got coming.
Maybe she's got something coming. She's going to be in the upcoming Loki series, so it's always good to fuck around with that Feige money. Make something happen. Unfortunately, like that is only going to be through Disney Plus, and so it's not like a mass release. If it eventually makes it out to another platforms, she may get a little more recognition out there. But she's got an unannounced role right now, along with Owen Wilson. So I'm really interested to see. What's going to happen with him? And,
like her, it makes sense. Like I could understand putting her in there, but Owen Wilson, like what?
Wow.
How do you take him seriously?
What I could see her end up doing is playing the love interest of Tessa Thompson.
Okay.
That would follow right along with some of the roles she's
that would follow right along. That was just based off of what we heard in here. She's also got another movie coming out called Seacole. It's a biopic of Mary Seacole, a Scottish Jamaican nurse and heroine during the Crimean War. So another boring fucking movie during the 1850s. But yep, that's it.
I hope her role in Loki is not just for the TV show. I hope for her sake it's not like Rebecca Hall in Iron Man 3, that she plays a prominent role, but then it extends into the movies after that. Because I think that will do a lot of big things for her career.
I can't wait to see what Owen
Wilson
Wilson does in that. Jesus.
Guess we'll find out. All right, so for our next episode, here are the 5 actors we have under consideration. I got pulled from our mega huge list of actors. We have Gene Hackman, Josh Brolin, Margot Martindale, Oscar Isaac, a.k.a. James D'Imperio, Heartthrob, number 1 in your hearts, and Renee Russo. Solid list.
That's a good one.
Solid list.
There is one name that one spin could fuck it all up, though. And I mean, I know she's a nice woman, but Margot Martindale is clearly the one that nobody wants to have happen.
I agree. Give me Brolin or Hackman. Both of those would be awesome.
Absolutely.
I don't know a ton of Margot's work, but I know she's been steadily working for a long time.
She was the mean mom in $1 Million Baby. That's
we mentioned, I think, off recording that she plays Dewey Cox's mom in Walk Hard.
Yeah, he kills her. She's dancing to the music. She falls out and he kills her. So
she's got some comedy side there. That'll be there. But Oscar would be good. How many of you guys have seen it? Inside Llewyn Davis.
Great movie. It's fantastic.
You guys ever seen that?
I haven't seen it because it sounds boring.
It does sound boring.
Dude, one of the best soundtracks of any movie I've ever seen. It's awesome.
It's really cool to see him sing like that.
He's really good in it.
And we'd hit a lot of the other ones we've talked about. Most Violent Year and
what other movie did he
Ex
sing
Machina?
in? He sang in 10 Years Chris Pratt movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and he was in a ska band way back in the day,
Well, that makes him the coolest person on this list for sure.
right? 100%.
Yes.
He was the interpretive dancer for the Mighty Mighty Bosstones.
That'll take you to the top of Hollywood.
I'll just
quick,
text
man.
him and ask if he wants to come. He'll be at Thanksgiving.
Hackman. I mean, there's a lot
Yeah,
of great
he's the
movies
one.
there.
That's probably the
great
correct
roles.
answer.
Yeah.
Talk about The Replacements. Renee Russo's in like
Oh.
a lot of action movies from like the 90s.
She was in The Line of
So-
Fire,
Yeah,
Nightcrawler.
she's been in some
Get
great.
Shorty,
Lethal Weapons.
Major League. She was
Yep.
in Marvel, Tin Cup, like all Ransom,
Thomas Crown
She's
Affair.
been in,
Hell
she's been in
yeah.
some
Yeah.
great ones. A lot of good '90s
Yes,
movies for sure.
Outbreak. That one hits a little too close to home, but yeah.
Serious testosterone boost if we're doing Brolin. He's got some badass movies.
Yeah, The Goonies, The Goonies, The Goonies.
Sicario.
I love Sicario.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Sicario.
Yeah.
True
I
Grit,
love No Country too.
the new one.
We'll find out in a week or so because, as always, the wheel decides.
Except for Marco Martindale. Will decides.
Our next podcast is going to hit September 24th. You know, we'll have fun, whoever it is, unless I guess it's Margot Martindale. And in that case, we'll just have to deal with an angsty Warren Hicks, but we'll make it work. As always, you can find us on Twitter, Munson's at Movies. You can catch us on Instagram, Munson's at the Movies. You can email us, munsonsatthemovies@gmail.com. Any final thoughts from the Munsons?
I'll keep fighting wherever I can make a difference. As far as possible, away from you. You cross the line when you stop treating people with respect. You're smart enough to know that. You just don't care.
Munson's out.
All right, let's go. Thank you for the education, gentlemen. We've just received a PhD in stupidity. Doctor, shall we?